I'm Danny with BuyRadarDetectors.com. I'm here today with Bob from Vail Corporation. Bob is the president of Vail Corporation and head of product development, and he's known online as the Vail Guy. His product, Vail Stealth Coating, is the perfect addition for any radar detector. It reduces the effectiveness of police laser and also IR cameras, and complements radar detectors in a very, very good way. Bob has spent hundreds of thousands of miles testing radar detectors and is a radar detector expert. In this video, we're going to talk about the Passport Max and Max2 radar detectors. Bob, what do you think about the Passport Max and more recently the Max2?
Well, just to put this in the context, the Max and Max2 are the successors effectively to the Passport 9500IX.
Right.
Which basically means it has integrated the Defender database, which is Escort's database that has it's GPS enabled, which gives you red light camera locations and speed camera locations, very helpful, as well as being able to filter out real-time stationary sources of known falses, such as K-band, as the 9500IX did, right, as well. The Max2 is different. It's a successor to the Max, or they're offering both here. And the Max2 allows for Bluetooth connectivity, just like the Passport that we talked about. So it integrates with your smartphone app.
And that's something that was possible with the Max, but you had to have a special cable.
The Smart Cord
Live, which
right,
was about an $80 power cord, I believe.
Something like that, yeah, and they've integrated it now into the detector itself.
Right.
So you're probably going to say, well, what is with the Max and how is it different than the 9500IX? Excuse me for bending down here, but I'm going to power these puppies up. This is the Max2, and they're very similar from a performance standpoint, other than the Bluetooth. I think the newer version, you can see the lights here. This is lighted, which is a pretty cool feature. It's got an Oled display now. Again, like the Passport, unfortunately.
It's a very impressive looking display.
It is an impressive looking display. My only suggestion to Escort is if they can find a way to make it more bright, mm-hmm, and more readable in some of the conditions when you're driving. If it's light, the sun's up high, it can be very difficult to read even at the Max display setting, no pun intended. The nice thing also, like with the Passport with their OLED, is you can change the color. I think there are 4 color combinations: blue, white, green, red. I have a preference for the green. I think it's really pretty readable. Also with the Max, I'm going to just power it up again. You'll see that the buttons are on the top, okay, and they light to the color of the display. So if you change the color of the display, it'll change the color of the lights.
It's a nice touch.
It is a nice touch. The only thing, some people can react is that when you have it mounted on your windshield at night, if it alerts, which it'll do, this will light to help get your attention, you can see a little bit of reflection off the windscreen.
Okay.
I don't think that's so terrible, but the thing that's unique about or special about the Max is the quickness to the radar detector. So,
Bob, you discovered that band segmentation in some other detectors really increased the speed that detectors would alert. What has Escort done with the Max to take advantage of it? I know that this doesn't have segmentation specifically,
right,
but they're doing something to take advantage of that. Is that right?
Right. Basically, Escort finally did see the light with the value of having fast reacting detectors, and not only can it see a source quickly, like a quick trigger or a brief reflection of a constant on radar down the road that you may pick up, but that effectively can give you significantly more warning time, mm-hmm, because the sensitivity may be there, but if the quickness isn't, you essentially miss that. So what Escort now does is they do a different kind of processing. It has a much quicker CPU in here, mm-hmm, than the older detectors, and it's looking at the entire, the way it's stepping through, it's looking at the entire section here. They sort of have a graph on it, as best as I can show you here, and they're looking at a range of signals, and they're ferreting out, which ones are, and they're doing it very quickly, which ones are bona fide. And they have mixed results, quite honestly. Escort has indicated to me that they're still evolving this technology. Mm-hmm. It's brand new for them, and I suspect we're going to see this type of processing, I suspect, in other detectors in the future.
Now,
so
the Max and the Max2 are firmware upgradable, so if Escort discovers that there are some issues or comes up with a way to make improvements, is that something where they can just make a firmware update and you don't have to replace the entire detector.
Exactly. They have, you'll see a mini USB, it's a D, I think you can plug it right into your computer. It'll power it up. And you register your detector with the detector tools from Escort, and then you can push your firmware. With the Max, quite frankly, when it first came out, and I was pretty tough on the Max, I wish I didn't have to be, but I felt I had to be, very honest about it. Wasn't the most comfortable review to write. Fortunately, Escort did come up with a lot of updates pretty fast and furious. And they're up to 1.8, I think, on this, which was pretty stable. And so the Max2 basically picked up where the Max was. So they're both updatable. Both
so we've seen a lot of improvements on the Max.
We
have.
have.
It was first released. You did notice a lot of problems with it, and we appreciate your honesty on that. I'm sure everyone does.
Yeah, almost everyone. But no, look, yes, they've evolved. This is a brand new, in fairness to Escort, a brand new technology for them. I mean, the 9500, 8500, all those detectors came from the similar evolution. This was a real break in departure for them. We've theorized what it would be like to put this technology, the software processing, on an M3 platform, which is their higher end, which we're going to talk about, and see if that could really extract some more effective dBs out of the sensitivity and performance. But
now, compared to the 9500iX, I know you believe the 9500iX was a slower detector. Is that right?
Right.
Would you say the Max is an improvement speed-wise
yes,
over the 9500iX?
Radar detector manufacturers really today have a very difficult landscape to contend with. Especially now with it really irritates me, these lane departure systems and automated cruise control systems and blind spot detection systems. Many of these cars are using K-band transponders, and what they do is they appear like bona fide radar. It's
like an endless source of false alerts.
It's horrible, and we're going to talk about a terrible story when this can really bite you. But Escort does have TSR. Now, they did market this using terminology called DNA to look at the DNA, and quite frankly, I haven't really seen the evidence of this really being. It's a quick detector, without question. I much prefer to the 9500iX. Escort historically has looked at making quiet detectors as a philosophical contrast to Valentine, who tends to alert more and let the driver make that determination. So there's two different schools of thought there. I think the majority of drivers really don't want to be bothered if they don't need to be bothered. So Escort is embarking off on a very ambitious effort to give you quickness, but do signal processing and rejection as quickly as they possibly can. And again, it's new for them, and they've indicated to me they're going to do better as they evolve this technology. The one thing that I do find, quite honestly, still with the Max2, is that it will misidentify occasionally K-band transponders, unfortunately, like the Cobra does actually, the 7800 BT, which we'll talk about. And sometimes you'll get a KA alert, and that may very well be what is technically called a harmonic of K, and it misidentifies it, and you'll get an alert to KA.
So you have seen that from
I've seen
time in the
that
Max.
quite regularly, actually, with this, especially on 95 when I came up here. There's a lot of cars now that have these systems in it, and getting that KA warning, you basically get, I think it's like 33.676. If you see that frequency being displayed, likely, and oftentimes it'll be interleaved with K as well. So it'll see it as K, it'll report as K, it'll report as KA. And interestingly enough, frankly, the Passport, the new Passport does a much better job with, I don't think I ever saw a KA alert as a result of it being in proximity. So personally, I think the Passport does a better job with these systems. And so, but again, Escort continues to tell me that they're going to work on improving this. So I think the potential, the platform for them to be seen in other detectors is going to be a solid one hardware-wise, and they're just going to have to tweak out the software. The
GPS in these radar detectors gives them a few other, or the ability to add a few things that you don't see in some others, such as smart filtering or location-based filtering. Do you think that is a good feature?
Yeah, I think it can be for stationary. Again, there's two schools of thought on this.
Commonly, you think of the grocery store automatic door setting off your detector.
Correct.
The point of this is you'll go by the grocery store 3 times,
right,
and it'll automatically lock it out in the future.
Correct. It'll auto learn, but there's some complications with that, frankly. Like, for example, if you come across a road construction sign common, they'll run K-band, if you've seen those things, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're going one direction, you'll pick it up on the outskirts if you're going like eastbound, for example, and then you lock it out. But then if you go further down the road, you'll still pick up some from the original source facing away, and sometimes you'll have to lock it out again. And then if you come the other direction, when you do, you'll be further away from that, and you'll have to lock it out again, and then you may pick up one going farther away. So what happens is that one source could potentially have 1, 2, 3, 4 lockouts. And what happens then, it's no longer a point source of filtering, it's a range of filtering.
Mm-hmm.
And, is there a possibility in that area of there could be a bona fide K? Well, in my case yesterday, there was. Now, it wasn't a stationary lockout. I was just in the noise of other K bands. So,
right.
Is the risk? It never happened to me. Has
When
been.
you're a power driver or power user of radar detectors, I would say anyway, you probably don't want to filter anything. Is that right? You want to probably know most of the time when it's seeing something.
Yeah, it's a philosophical difference. And the other thing that Escort, again, and I'm not beating up on Escort, just understand. I mean, these are things that my observations I would prefer to see improvements. Escort tends to alert and have what is called a trailing alert. Now they do that maybe to, whatever. It could give the appearance of a more sensitive detector, possible. It's just their approach. So, like for example, if you see a brief I/O of radar, the Escorts tend to alert for 7, 11, 12 seconds, and that can be a real pain when you're alerting, picking up things. Where the Valentine tends to be very quick. So you'll get a false on a V1, for example, boop, boop, and the arrow may stay for a little bit, but there's only one quick tone. And even Valentine, again, not to make this a Valentine discussion, but they'll do processing where if it detects a false, it'll junk it out eventually. If it says, I'm alerting first, but you know what, I've just looked at it again and it's junk coming to this, and all that can happen in the time that Escort is still alerting to the original false. So it makes falsing more problematic.
One other thing I want to ask you about, Bob, is Escort has fairly recently changed the type of suction cup that they ship the detectors with. The mount, instead of being the traditional 2 suction cup, small metal bracket, now they've gone with a bigger super cup.
Right.
And the Max and the Max2 include this new sticky cup, I think they call it.
Right.
What do you think of it?
I'm partial to the 2 suction cup.
Are you?
Yes, sir. This presents, in my opinion, it's an opinion, challenges. If you push this on your windshield, you see, you push this down and it clicks in, right? But when you're on the windshield and you're trying to release it, it's tough to get your finger in there. Okay? It's also very large. It's like what you would expect to see with like a TomTom or something like that, a Garmin. It's just a big thing. And I'm also finding, unfortunately, that it does lose its suction from time to time. I mean, it can be sticky, and I think part of that is it's so sticky in some respects that it picks up, if you can see here, dog hair. I have a lot of dogs in the car, so maybe I'm an unrealistic thing. But you pick up a lot of
Picks
dirt.
up dust. And dirt. And
Correct. And when it's sitting up there, unfortunately, with what I find with the 2 suction cup, if you lose adhesion, you tend to drop one. And then you can quickly push it up.
Right. Now you're losing the entire detector.
Yeah, and that's a lot of weight to drop. And that happens to me frequently enough. And if you have it high enough, people like to mount their detectors high. I tend to go low center. People like to put it high. That's a lot of weight to drop, to fall on your dashboard or bounce off the dash to the ground. So the other thing I wish that Escort didn't do is this mount, unlike all the other mounts, is not compatible with any other detector. They've made it only unique to the Passport, and I can't even use a 2 suction cup without modification on this sucker. So I would, frankly, with all due respect, I would much rather see, you can buy these individually if you want, but my preference would be just to have a nice, good 2 sticky cup. Whistler makes a great suction cup, if you've seen those.
Yeah, their suction cups are fantastic.
Fabulous
As well. Yeah.
So they can be done. Plus, they're clear, and they're where this is black, and it's just more noticeable. Yeah. I think. And pulling this off the windshield, and we'll tell about that story again from yesterday, if you get pulled over inadvertently, which sometimes that can happen, you want to remove it from the windshield. And 2 suction cup, you can take it off pretty quickly if you really work at it. This sucker, you're like, you gotta pop this, you got to pull. It's just, I find this to be more cumbersome. This, you have a knob that you have to loosen that makes it rotate, and it just never seems, I don't know. I'm just.
The old ones you could just, I mean, it was metal, you just bend it a little bit if you needed to make sure your detector was flat.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, I guess it seems like this is the direction they're going, but I believe you can still find some aftermarket mounts that work on
Right, and the new Passport, fortunately, doesn't have that. It's still a 2-suction cup.
Oh, okay.
So this, you know, just for the Max, I prefer. The other thing too it does, if I may just show this briefly, this is the package that you get, the case, the carrying case. And it's larger because you have the sticky cup.
Sure.
Whereas, frankly, I prefer this. This is a really slick looking box. You know, Beltronics used to package their products in these, and you know, Escort had like the metal. But this is really slick. Look at the embossing, raised embossing of Escort.
I like that.
And it's just more streamlined. And the suction cup, the cord, the detector goes in here. This obviously takes a lot more room, and therefore you have this. So I prefer to see this in this, but that's just my own individual opinion. You know? So anyway, not to spend too much time on the sticky cup. But there you have it.
All right, Bob. Thank you very much for letting us know your thoughts on the Escort Max and the Max2.
Do you want to just mention the price points?
Yeah, I do. $549 on the Max and $599 on the Max2. So you're looking at about 10% more for the Max2, and the Max2 has Bluetooth built in. So if you like that, if you plan on using it with Escort Live, then it's probably going to be worth the extra $50 to you. Be sure if you purchase a Max or a Max2, combine it with Veil stealth coating. Veil is going to reduce the effectiveness of police laser, or the targeting range of police laser, so you'll have a lot more warning time if you're targeted by laser. Check out our website if you have any questions at buyradardetectors.com, or our YouTube channel at youtube.com/buyradardetectors. So thanks again, Bob.
My pleasure. Thank you.